Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. We're going to put lo-fi on. Seems like a thing to do. I think I finally figured out the secret to this thing. And here it is. We're working on that right now. This is the final version of the page that I was working on yesterday, trying to figure out what in the world are all my settings. My settings, the problem we've got is I have to print it on US printers. Good morning, Brent. I have to print it on US printers. And I'm noticing that there's no standard for it. And Bob will print any size I want, even if it's weirdly proportioned. And that's becoming an issue. Because now I'm like, book 3 is slightly different scaled than book 2. And the tech manual is slightly different. They're all different aspect ratios. They're all roughly correct, but they're all different aspect ratios. And the problem that I've got is I don't want it to fail to fit into a normal comic book sleeve. And now I have realized that Bob will print whatever I put in there. There's no standard for it. His cutter is just set for whatever cut. I thought I did too, but now I'm noticing that they're all different. Everything's different. So I'm going to once again do this. I mean, if you guys want to do this for me, you certainly can. That's what I did actually to Bill. I outsourced all of my star charts. And now I can just do star charts are right by Bill's saying, so they must be okay. I don't want to do this all the time either. I just end up doing it all the time. But here's what we've got. I have United States territory and Japanese territory. So, well then, you'll just have to put up with it then, won't you? And we got no man's land. This is neither territory out here. But this is the edge of the page for our manga page, right here. There's no more paper after this. And what I did to make sure of it this time is I did it my way. I've been doing this the real way for each and every one of these times, and it's coming up different every time because there's math involved. So instead, I'm doing it my way. I started with this. It's a page out of Supergirl, right? Okay, now I know what the page size is, right? Originally, I had 2 copies of this, so I had the full page out here. Oh, yeah, well, that's fine. I had the full page all the way out to its bleed extension. Now, I went and looked up the actual dimensions of a comic and double-checked it, measuring the Supergirl comic. So now I have exactly the width and exactly the height. And then I checked it against Supergirl. Okay, so Supergirl has a stop here. The good news about this particular Supergirl issue is never did they ever full bleed panel. So, yay, makes it straight up. Okay, so then what I did was I then took and put a Macross page on here. And then I extended the Macross page out so that there was a full bleed section here and here, because that's the difference between here and here. And then made sure that full bleed went all the way around. And then checked in here, in here, in here, and in here. And that gave me my dimensions. And that's what I should have done in the very beginning instead of doing it this whole measuring things with rulers, because the measuring things with rulers is giving me different numbers every time. You can give me crap about it. That's okay. As long as you're not serious and going, that's it, you got to stop. Because your job, one of your jobs, is to make sure I don't run amok. I'm going to duplicate this in no man's land. I'm going to rotate this. Put it right here. So they did put it on the outside. There we go. Alrighty. I'll duplicate you. And this is just to show to myself the next time I get confused and go, wait, what did I do again here? How are you this morning?
Okay. I'm awake.
You're awake. There's coffee.
That is what I smell.
Because I love you.
Hello, art people.
Yeah, it's just Brent at this point.
Hello, art person.
Well, I think we got 3 viewers, so there's 3 people out there. There's 2 lurkers. So there we go. This is the difference between here, which is the bleed of the, hey, some user, how you doing this morning? The bleed of the paper for a US sized printer. So this is a 1/4 inch in and a 1/4 inch in to either side. And that's all of that stuff. Oh, I need to duplicate my Japanese territory because that's funny. You're here early this morning, some user. You've been climbing rocks all day? Rock climbing is tight. We've been watching an awful lot of pitch meeting on YouTube. It's become sort of the family thing. There we go. So what I've done here is I've made it so that we have mimicked both of these on either side, which is cool. Turn that off and merge all of these together. Then I can duplicate it. Yeah. Hey, Can. So what happened was last night I realized that yet again the numbers on issue 2 were different than the numbers on issue 1, and that they were a different aspect ratio. And so we had to so I'm solving this once and for all in my head by doing it a different way. Because they shouldn't be different. They shouldn't be changing from comic to comic. They should be the same every time. And that's really bothering me because it means that I'm doing my math wrong again. All right. And so, I mean, part of this, by the way, guys, is that I did do originally I was going to have something with webcomics, and webcomics have a completely different aspect ratio. They have an extension to the bottom. But now that Global Comics is around, I'm not really interested in doing webcomics. And so I don't need to do webcomics. So the old one was just me taking the old template and chopping off the bottom and assuming that it should be the right aspect ratio. Part of the reason we're doing this again is because I didn't remeasure that one. I just assumed it was correct and went with it. But now I'm noticing that. So that's what we're doing here. Is this is at 600 DPI, and that's the other thing that Can is just bringing up. All of them were 11 by 17. 11 by 17 does not shrink down to 6.875 inches by 10.428 inches. 11 by 17 shrinks down to something a little bit more akin to, well, that's part of it, is it shrinks down to something. I don't remember what it was. But all of us artists are used to working on 11 by 17 and then scanning it in and then printing it out at a smaller resolution. And that's part of the issue is 11 by 17 doesn't scale down 1-to-1. 11 by 17 scales down to slightly larger than width, which is why on 11 by 17 master pages, they've got a blue line in there to tell you where the width difference is. And then you have to scale it down, whatever, 62.5% or something really weird. So instead, we're going a different direction. I've doubled my resolution to 600 DPI, and I'm making these the way they should be printed. So this page right here is 6.875 inches wide by 10.438 inches tall, which is exactly what a standard comic book should be. And now I'm trying to figure out what are the proportions of a manga page inside there. So I don't know if you saw this when we started here, Can, but here is a page from Supergirl. And I actually literally took one of my Supergirl comics from back here in my morgue, threw it on the scanner, and scanned it at 600 DPI. That's what it was. I've cleaned up the borders, but you get the idea. And I put the page to here, which is the 0.25 bleed that we have on everything. Because the real trim says that it's 6.625 by 10.187 after bleed. So once you trim the bleed off, you don't need to worry about it. So the red line now indicates the bleed here. And I put red for everything US so that way I've got all the things like, here's 6 inches on the paper. And here's 6.88 inches. or 875 right here to the edge. And then I put the standard 0.25 bleed, standard 0.25 bleed. It's a 1/4 inch bleed. It's always been a 1/4 inch bleed, so we're good. So then, once I did this and determined what that looked like, I just simply took a manga page and brought it in. This is a page from Macross, which is my favorite manga, right? So I just brought it in. I can already see this is the inside safe right here. And then I just made sure, because he goes over the safe to a full bleed right here. So this is full bleed right there, and this is full bleed up here. So then I just simply drew a line over it, I put in a whole bunch of guides in here, and then just drew dotted lines. So these are our dotted lines. So now I know what's going on. And to make sure that I don't get confused again, I have called everything in US sizes the United States territory, and everything in Japanese sizes is Japanese territory. And then that way I don't have to get confused anymore. So because we're going to do this, we're going to go from this line right here. We're going to say, that's not working. We're going to go here. And from this line, we're going to go out like so. On both sides. Because this, I don't cross. My art can never go higher than here on the page or here on the bottom of the page. That's the rule. I can go all the way to the edge of the paper. I can go all the way to the edge of the paper on either side to the right if I want to bleed out all the way to the end. I'm not ready to switch this over yet. I'll turn the grid back on. I'll check my ruler settings, and I'll switch them back. Okay. Check my project settings, and I'll check them and switch them back 2 inches for just a moment. Making sure everything's still 10.88 and 6.88 and 10.44. Okay. And then from here, we're looking at this. I'm going to change the grid. A 1/10 of an inch. That puts this at 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So again, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same thing here. Two, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Why do I do this to myself? All right, here we go. Now, the problem, of course, is that on US paper, it's a 1/4 inch. On Japanese paper, the bleed is 5 millimeters, and that's not the same. It's one of the problems we're having. All right. And just so that I don't have any design or intention of drawing in that zone, we're going to play this game. Not from this direction, though. So for some reason, my refresh to the right is not the same as my refresh to the left. So if I do this and go right, it takes forever to get to the edge of the page. See? Just in case I get any kind of wild urge to draw in something, I'm going to make sure that you understand you're not supposed to do that at all. Do it right, guys. It's funny because I often discuss the differences between neurotypical and people with ADD. And I know that I've had this discussion, an interesting discussion with Pepper, about how he says there's a distinct difference between ADDers and autism. And I disagree with him respectfully, because I think that we're both very similar, but our compulsions aren't as strong in ADDers. So we're not compulsive to do the things. And then this happens where I'm unhappy with the way that the pages are, and I've got to make them straight. And I sit there and I go, no, I'm back to thinking that we're similar. We're very, very similar, because it's a compulsion. This isn't straight, and I can tell that it's not straight. Why are you like this? Did you move? You did. Why did you move? That's weird. And it's clear that I'm just as compulsive with this. It's driving me just as crazy. Yeah, it is. It's totally like OCD. And in fact, there are a lot of papers that are that theorize that ADDers and autistic spectrum people all suffer from OCD in one degree or another. Speaking of OCD, that's weird. Okay. And so it makes me wonder often about things like that. I mean, are we OCD in a lot of ways? There's a lot of things that I have to do them. They are compulsive, like refixing all of my star charts whenever I'm not sure, because I can understand, I can see now a little bit of the feelings and what it feels like. And what it feels like is I've made a mistake and somebody's going to notice somewhere along the line that I have made an error. And the truth of the matter is, it's nobody will notice. I am absolutely sure nobody has noticed that issue 3 of my comic is like a millimeter shorter than issue 2. Looking at all 3 of my comics, I am sure that nobody has noticed that this is a different aspect ratio. Right? But it is. It's off by a millimeter on this one. And as is this one, off by 1 millimeter. So, is it OCD? Yeah, it's very much OCD. Because I don't think there's a soul, even you guys, who are probably the most dedicated to my particular project, even you guys don't care that it's off by a millimeter. But it's driving me crazy. I mean, like, I've got to fix this. It can't be off by a millimeter, you know. And it's a weird compulsion. So, okay. Now we've got this all squared away. Pun very much intended. The light blue indicates trim bleed, the way we should treat the border of trim. And then this area out here is the actual trim of the... Right? I know, like, you need to get a spray bottle for me. Everything in red's in U.S. territory. Everything in blue. All right. Now we'll get all the lines that they're supposed to be. Because what Clip Studio needs to know is, what is this in millimeters? All of the things are in. So what is this in millimeters? It doesn't matter at this point. So when I did this, and I was over here on this page, actually I'm gonna kill this page and not save it. When I was over here on the pages in here, this black line is not correct. This is the interior first frame, and you can see it's off by the comic manga size frame. The manga size frame is supposed to be here. It's here. Its aspect ratio is different. Is bothering me? Because of what? I mean, this is a significant difference here. That's not just a little bit. That's actually like 2 centimeters off, which makes me think this entire page. And then up here's where the safe is. That's 10, 20, 30 millimeters off. I guess 6, so 6 millimeters off on the top and the bottom. So this is totally wrong. Something's totally wrong on this page, which is completely different than Bellatrix Rising 1. Before I start putting art down, I want to make sure this is correct, because once I put the art down, we get to keep it, because I'm not redrawing the whole page because it's off. So we get to keep it. That's what happens. Wherever it is, we keep it that way, and it stays that way, and Bob just trims off parts of the art if he has to make it work. Because, okay, so part of the problem was Bob emailed me with the red book, with the red issue. He sent me an email and said, you have an awful lot of space on all 4 sides. Are you sure you want to do that? And in a flippant answer, I said, oh yeah, don't worry about it, because I have it set up for manga scale. And he wrote back and said, you might want to double check it. And I'm glad he did, because it was teeny. Like, it was in the middle of this huge page. There was just this, the art was like this. And it had somehow I had gotten the numbers all really screwed up. And then, right, trims off part of the art, right? And I had gotten the numbers all screwed up, and it was really small. And when I'm exaggerating when I say it was this big on this page, but it was like this, with like a good inch and 3 inches to the bottom and an inch, like all these huge open gaping areas all around the art. And so I don't want to make that mistake, right? Just the tip. You're funny. You guys are funny, funny people. I don't want to make the mistake again of, I don't need my email. I can close my email. It's one less thing to worry about. I don't want to make that mistake again, where it's so, because I would have been all right if it was just a little bit, but this was a huge gap on both sides. And once art is shrunk, it can't be expanded. So I can't, once I've shrink it down to fit something, I can't blow it back up, because then all of it becomes pixely, right? We lose resolution off of it. So I don't want to make that mistake. So this time I did it a way that I know I walked through all the steps myself. I'm not relying on math. I'm relying totally on drawing, which I know most people would be like, oh man, I wouldn't rely on eyeballs. I'd rely on math, but instead I'm relying on my eyeballs, because that I trust. Now all I got to do is just convert the numbers back out again into Japanese mode. What was I doing? I forgot. We're doing the grid ruler settings. They're in inches now. Okay, so we don't need inches anymore. So let's change back to, we have our 1/4 inch bleed and our fake 1/4 inch bleed. Change page settings, switch from inches to millimeters, and that puts us at 174.75 to 65.18. It always recenters it, which makes me really nervous because I'm like, did you resize the page? Okay. Then, once we do this, I will then go over and view and turn on the grid. But we also have to change the grid settings because it always picks something very strange. Like that. So we'll do 1 millimeter. Now the grid's set for 1 millimeter for each square. Okay. Don't need to worry about 6 inches. This is where things start to freak me out. Like, why is there a 1/2 millimeter open gap around the outside edge of this page? That's fair. Legitimately, this is kind of what both Can and Brent do, is pull me back from these weirdnesses. So I'm allowing myself to do this weirdness this time, and then this is it. If it comes out different again, I'm sending it to somebody else, like I did with Bill and the star charts. I'm just going to send it to somebody else and say, okay, I don't know what I did wrong. So 170, 180, 190, 200, 210, 11, 210, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.5. Right? Do I trust myself on this? Probably not. Are these tenths of a... They must be. This is why, I swear. Okay. What did I set this up as? Oh, I know. It's interesting. There, let's do that. Right, 170, 171, 2, 3, 4, which makes sense. So, for those who are wondering or watching at home, the home game, that's what makes me have doubts. Right there. I had an inattentive blip for just a second, and in that blip, I set the grid wrong. By doing that, I made it so that I said 214 millimeters wide instead of 174 millimeters. That one moment, that one inattentive blip. Now I caught it, but you guys know there's a term out there called 0, 1, more than 1, and it's a theorem which says if you have 0 errors, then you can be relatively confident that there are 0 errors. But if there is 1 error, then you must assume there's more than 1. And it's called 0, 1, more than 1. And it means that if you don't find any mistakes, then you're probably right. There's no mistakes because you did enough checking and everything. But if you find 1 mistake, you must assume there are more. And that's something that happens here. I just made a mistake. Now I have to assume I've made other mistakes, right? Because if that mistake happened, what other mistakes am I not catching? So 240, 241, 2, 3, 4. This is at 244 right here. Oh God, I hate this thing. 244.6 because it's slightly over. And that's called 0, 1, more than 1. It's a computer algorithm theorem. And this looks like it's actually very nicely 251. Isn't that cool? Isn't that nice of it? Isn't that nice? You're so nice. And when we say reasonably sure, I mean, obviously anything can always happen. But if you have 0 errors, if you find no errors, then you can be reasonably sure there are no errors. If you find 1 error, you must assume there's more than 1 error. And the biggest problem with me and inattentiveness, there's always something that I seem to have forgotten. And that makes it very uncomfortable to count on myself. It makes it very difficult for me to count on myself. I'm constantly finding mistakes that I made. Therefore, it makes me worried that there are other mistakes that I never found that somebody else will and yell at me for. And it's, it comes from having a childhood of ADD, right? I mean, that's part of the problem, is that it comes from having a childhood where I was an ADDer, and therefore I would forget something. Dad would tell me to do something. Mom would tell me to do something. And I missed one thing and screwed it up. And magically, they all knew that I missed it. And I never knew that I missed it. And so it seemed to me like I was just getting in trouble out of the blue. I was sitting here one day reading a book and poof, I'm in trouble again. And I don't know what I did. I don't know how I ended up that way. And I'm trying really, really hard not to do that to my child. I'm trying to explain things and explain how it went bad and how things, and stuff like that. And it's difficult because I really don't want a situation where he has to repeat my mistakes. 10, 11, 12, 13. This is 14. 14.5. We'll go 14.5. 14.5. And so, and that means we're, by the way, taking away 14.5 on both sides of this. To come into that inner zone. Right? Six point something. 6 point your face. So, like this. I don't know what the answer really is on this one. I guess some people probably would just say, let's not worry about it. We'll just call it an arbitrary thing. And it'll be fine. And maybe that's probably the better idea. 6.4 millimeters. That's why. So here's what I was just talking about. The Japanese use a 5 millimeter bleed, and we use a 1/4 inch bleed. A 1/4 inch is 6.4 millimeters. That's off by 1.4 millimeters. So the bleed alone causes a difference in the way that this reads. And that could be my 1 millimeter right there, right? The difference between US bleed and Japanese bleed could be right here. Why are you not writing? Oh, because you're in white. Don't be in white. That's weird. All right. No, but my intention ultimately is to have the comics printed and tankobon size, which would be pretty good. Which would be this size, right? There's a printer in New York that will print this aspect ratio for the books, and I would love to ultimately print my comics at this size. But this is a Japanese tankobon, so the pages, I want to make sure that my pages will fit correctly inside the tankobon. However, starting my first releases, I'm releasing them as comic book size, US comic book size. So that's the part that's part of our problem here, is trying to rectify this. The difference between a Japanese tankobon and an American comic, the size difference is very different. And this is the same problems that American publishers have had for a long time, because this is a Japanese manga released as a US comic book by Dark Horse. It's Dark Horse imprint. And that's the same thing. They've got it all set up. And what they chose to do was to actually stretch the art a little bit, which has made everything very weird. And that was a mistake that they got yelled at for by the Japanese manga fans early on, this is the 90s when this happened. Because, of course, they did the classic, and nobody will notice. Right? Who'll notice? There's no way anybody would possibly notice this. Well, people noticed, which, is kind of funny in its own way. Once again, you're on the wrong. So, will I release my comics in Japanese, though, is kind of another good question on this one. And the answer is maybe. Maybe I will. Boy, I've got to admit, my comics in Japanese would be just as horrible as Star Trek in Japanese. So much technobabble. Ooh, yeah, I wouldn't want to do that. I want the art to be pretty standard. Increasing the space in the gutters, those are called gutters. The borders between panels, we call them gutters. So it's the same thing as like the gutter on a house, right? Those are called gutters, and the gutter distance in my comic will always be in manga size. Just had sudden realization. I'm like, oh crap, my gutters just increased by like a half a millimeter or something really weird. That's right, we'll fix that in a second. Step 2 of this is to come up with. There we go. Okay. So if we bring up oh crap, I just don't do that. If you include the guides, then the guides get included in the mix. Dang it. There we go. Okay. I mean, you can always trim it, but you'd need a paper cutter for it. I've got a paper cutter, so I could probably do it. But I don't have any problem making them smaller. We just have to trim the cells. And one of the things you can do, no, you can't do it. Don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. I was about to say, what we can do is just pour the epoxy and then cut the cells off at the edge of the epoxy. Because that'd work. Then you could just sand it off. What is my problem? Anyway, I'm like, it'll be fine. It'll be awesome. All right. So the next thing, now that we've done all this, is this. Let's look at the size of the text. And let's make sure that we are the right size for this. So I'll go down and grab Guy Serious, which is my font. And then I'll write Mistress. And we'll line it up right here. And let's do the math, shall we? Nope. .2 looks about right. I'm only looking at the height because my text is just a little bit thinner than theirs. Let's do math. Let's just do the math, guys. What could possibly go wrong if we all do math? I see a period here, by the way, which is fascinating to me. Okay. So 5.5 is going to be our text size for US text. So US text 5.5 point. Part of the reason this is so infuriating is that there are like right now I'm using 3 different sets of measurement for this. I'm using US inches, Japanese millimeters, or the rest of the world millimeters metric, and then point, which is the way that text is measured. So US text ends up being 5.5 point. I'll make it in red because it's a US thing. And I'll put that up here. Right? Looks like 55 point. That's right. I will know what it means. It also looks like US gutters are pretty straight up, easy to understand. They're about 4 millimeters high, 4 millimeters across. That's cool. But if that's only if we're going up a half an inch each time. So US text is at 5.5 point, gutters are 4 millimeters straight. I'm never going to use US gutters, but it's good to have that information so that we know what we're dealing with. Because I don't use US gutters, but they're 4 millimeters. So 4 millimeters, 4 millimeters. So the gutters are straight up 4 millimeters, both directions. Okay, cool. No problem. solves that problem. Now let's check where our manga is. Manga is going to be completely different, naturally, because why would we have anything useful here? And then we will say in here, okay, Japanese text. Bigger, which I think is fascinating. So here's the reason I'm also doing this. If 5.5 is my minimum size, then I now know I can write text bubbles whenever I have somebody who has to go through this long, arduous 25-minute rant about, like Bennett, who goes on this rant. 6, 7, 8. Then it goes on. So this is 8 point. Wow, look at that. That's the size of that. That's 8 point. That's huge. Huge. See you later. This is fascinatingly different. Dark Horse didn't do these, so we probably should look at like stuff like that. So maximum should be 8 point. And then now we got to look at these gutters. We're 2 on. Okay, so this is an important distinction for those of you who are watching for the first time. Gutters are different sized in Japan. So it's 3.5. And the reason behind that is because they use it to indicate which direction you're supposed to read. Since Japanese can be read in 2 different directions, the Japanese have set up the manga so that the manga can also be read in 2 different directions. Nope. So, because of that, we end up with a difference in the way that the gutters go. American comics have flat gutters of 4 millimeters. We've got 3.5 and 2 here. So when we set our gutters, we've got to change our gutters now to, I'm actually going to change all of this stuff from Guy Serious. It's cute to have it in Guy Serious, but the truth is I'm going to have it in Arial Black for all of these numbers so that there's no confusion. I have spent an awful lot of time being very confused. So, you know what? I'll do this. Not wanting to get any more confused. There we go. I feel kind of sad whenever I'm stuck in a compulsion. Like everybody's like going, well, poor guy. He's all stuck in his compulsion. I'm like, You're right. Japanese millimeters, man. That's different than Swedish millimeters. Apparently. There we go. Now you've learned something new today. Swedish millimeters and Japanese millimeters are not the same. Oh, man. I don't know. Sometimes you just gotta laugh, man. You just gotta laugh. Yeah, right. See, now you know something completely new. You heard it here. You heard it first. Millimeters are apparently different in Japan. Who knew? Oh, it's a good thing. It's a good thing you know we're friends. That's all I gotta say. It's a good thing we're friends. He'd be like, he's just weird. He's really weird. All right. It's like curry. Japanese curry and Indian curry are not the same things. So here's what we see. Now we know. If panel 1 doesn't look like this on the page, then we've done our gutters wrong. Concerned about doing math here. I'm gonna throw this the hell away so I don't get confused again. Throw this the hell away so I don't get confused. And that one go away too. Indian curry is more spicy. It's also not the same thing as Thai curry. Indian curry is definitely more spicy. Japanese curry can be spicy, but when Japanese curry goes spicy, it's more of the horseradish spice. So because it's wasabi, and so it tends to go more into the wasabi side, whereas Indian curry is more capsaicin. Capsaicin is the thing that burns in a pepper, so that's the chemical is called capsaicin, um, and that's what burns your tongue. It's an acid, and so um, Indian curry tends to be more of the hot chili pepper sort of aspect. But also, usually Japanese curry is not done spicy. I mean, it is, but not really like that spicy at all. All right. You turn the grid back on again. Find out where these guys go. Keep making that mistake over and over and over. So this is 19 millimeters in. Prodigy 19 millimeters from the other side too. We would hope. Oh, it's not going to be because it's from here. So this is at 29 millimeters, which makes sense. Some things that Clip Studio Paint does, I'm like, really, why do you do that? That is so weird. And we'll do the same thing over here. We'll check this guy. Just put in a huge thing here. Okay, 151, 2, 3, 4, 5, 155. 155 meters. We don't need to worry about that side. We do need to worry about this side. Two 31, 2, 3, 4, 5. 235 meters. The other thing about me doing it this way is this is the way I wanted to do it the first time around, but then didn't do it this way because this seems crazy and it seems like people would think that I was weird for not using actual math to do all of these things. But clearly, the actual math part of these things is starting to make my life complicated. So, the actual math part, all it did was just make me mad. So I should have done it this way and just said, I'll do it the crazy way, and you guys can just, deal. Hey there, cat. I have gone insane. Or at least that's what I think everybody thinks. Always plus. And I'm going to preface this by saying, honestly, if for some reason Global Comics and or Clip Studio Paint already has one of these templates, don't tell me. Just don't, because I already spent 2 hours on this. But what I have here is a conversion template for a page. So this is a page right here. I'll turn the grid off because it's kind of hard to see. But this is a page where, okay, good. Where in red is the 1/4 inch required trim for all comic book pages. So this is set to a US comic book size. However, the interior piece here is set to manga size. Blown up that littlest bit so that it matches US comic book size. And I did it by taking a Supergirl page here, measuring it, and then taking a manga page and blowing the manga page up physically and then measuring it. So that's how I did this. So if there's already a template like this, I don't want to know. I've gotten it under control now. It's all fine. But when I was making the pages for my next issue, it was completely off. It didn't look right at all. And everything was screwed up. And I was like, no, what's going on? And I know that the last 2 issues I sent to the printer, they're off aspect ratio wise by 1 millimeter in all kinds of random directions. And the last one I sent to Bob, he sent 2 emails saying, this is really small. The artwork's really small on the page. Are you sure? And then I said, yeah, sure. And he goes, no, I think you don't understand. Its printing is like a little teeny block in the middle. And I'm like, what? And then I checked and it was set wrong. So I'm trying to come up with sort of a uniform thing that I use every time and it never changes and every comic is the same. And so every time I've done this before, I've tried doing it with math and just, this is X millimeters wide, so we need to add 20 millimeters to this and 16 millimeters to that and yada, yada, yada. And every one of them has been different. So I no longer trust math. I did this with my eyeballs this time. So I'm like, meh. It's like, then I went on ahead and I measured for good measure. I went on ahead and got the text size. Everything in red is US sized. Everything in blue is Japanese sized. In fact, I even put United States territory, Japanese territory, just so I don't ever get confused. And then no man's land, because this is the difference between those two pages. So anyway, so I even then measured the gutters. The gutters on US comics are 4 millimeters. The gutters in the Japanese comics blown up to US size end up being 2 millimeters versus 3.5 millimeters, vertical and horizontal, respectively. So our text then is at 8 point, but I can go as low as 5.5 point because that's the same size as the Supergirl text. So all the text here was at 5.5 point, 5.5 point, and all the text here was at 8 point. So I measured everything, but see, I've noticed that there's a couple of smaller down here too, but we'll get there. I'm not worried about it. So I've got anywhere between 5.5 and 8 point I can use. And now all I'm doing is just trying to determine what this width is, what this width is. I know what that width is. And then that way I can go into, when I make a new project, I can change the project settings so that they fit this setup. And then I can sleep. Anyway, there you go. And that's where we're going. Okay. What really needs to happen is I need to go in here with the grid, turn on the grid. Now we need to do a thing. This is where you offset the grid. What? You offset the grid. And this way, you just count it. Right? So here's where we go. 1, 2, 3, 6.4. And that's 0. And then we offset it, also 6.4. And that puts that there. So 0 is now here on the grid. So now we know wherever it lands over here. Your router died. Who knows? So yeah, I was saying I hate it whenever I go into my ADD crazy OCD, but I'm in crazy OCD mode, which is fine. Just live. So this becomes 161, 162.6. And it should be in red because that's where we are in the world. All right. As a reminder to everybody on the stream, there will be no morning show tomorrow through next Wednesday. I will be on an aeroplane headed to Oregon, which I have put as the Oregon Trail. Mail theft? Oh no, what got thefted? I'm horribly afraid to ask. My sister actually has had some pretty lousy experiences with mail theft. Oh no. I'm so sorry, man. $235. 240. That's 239. 238.1. 1. Oh, that's so sad. I'm so sorry. As far as I can tell, you can lodge a complaint with the Postmaster General and they'll try to research it. Yeah. The post office will, I mean, that's what you can do is just mark it as that way. And that's even weirder. Yeah, if you've got a system where it's like supposed to be in a box or something, that's definitely on them.
Front door is open.
Mm. Yeah, the problem, of course, is what do you, I mean, if the seller only had one, what do you do? Oh, okay. All right. Now we'll go to the other part, which is change the grid's settings so that its height is 14.5 and it's 0. And that puts it right here. So now we go look at where are the gutters supposed to be. That puts this right here. And this is 240, 239, 238, 237, 236, 236.5 millimeters to here. this guy's going to be 20 and okay, so that's different. I almost said our gutter. So the top needs to be this is me trying to think whether what needs to be 20.9. Okay, we'll measure this inside line. Goes to here. Just copy you. Make you to 20. 21, 2, 3, 6. Yeah. Give it just enough room so it's not ugly. All right. That puts that there. Let's go ahead and do this internal one too, so we know we're doing grid ruler settings. All right. It now needs to be down 29. Nope. This is 29. Why is that not 29 numbers, guys? Zero, one, more than one. Oh, because the grid's moving. Okay. That's killing me there. You're killing me, Smalls. This is 19 over. That's correct, but this is not. This is 31 millimeters. Can I not count? What's going on here? This is why I don't 0, 1, more than one. I cannot trust it. I even don't really trust this until it's printed. 31, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 136. 136. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 0, 4. Internally. I mean, like my own machine to print comic books? Probably not. It's still cheaper to send this off to the local guy. It only costs about $2 or $3 per copy, generally.
Unless if we order more.
Yeah, and it gets better if we order a lot more.
It will get cheaper the more popular guy gets. Buy his comics.
Right. Buy my comics. But getting a machine to do that, first of all, they're still running big web presses, so that would be
We don't have anywhere to put
yeah. That'd take in my basement to run a web press, so I don't want to necessarily do that. So inside is 136. Now we're going to test it, guys. Here we go, testing it. First, save. Save. Oh, okay. Saving. By 204. Okay. Then page is at 223.6 millimeters. And then we'll actually do the other thing, which is the outer gutter. Right, 223. And then this is 236.5. We'll go to the other side.
besides which knowing our local printers that they would break all the time.
Right. Yeah. It's better to give somebody else the heartache of having to deal with the thing. And this is 169. And this is 174.5. And that should mean that there is a difference of page in theory. But the big thing we want to make sure we have is that our gutters, or our bleed is 6.4 millimeters because it's a 1/4 inch bleed. Okay, we've done this. We've saved all of this stuff is saved. So let's go back over to the actual Bellatrix Rising comic now, and let's check the project settings on this to make sure that this is straight, because it's not. This doesn't match at all. Somehow, this is exactly what I was just talking about. That's what I was talking about. It does not match at all. So the last thing we want to make sure we get is the size of the actual page. Why do I not have the size of the actual page on here? Let's take the grid, back to the grid. Take this to 0, and take this to 0. Perfect. And then the bottom of the page, right here, is 61, 2, 3, 4, 5, 265, 1. All right, and that's actually what I was talking about. This is the way we want these things to print. Okay, so this is the correct size to print a normal comic book page with the internal pieces set to manga. So I'm going to turn off the grid. That's what this guy is right here. Now we're going to go back over to Bellatrix Rising and look at the comic pages that I sent to the printer. Right, these are the comic pages I sent to the printer. We're already off. So let's go check these now. Go to the project settings, change project settings. Couldn't happen because you have a page open. Yes. I get it. Change project settings. Okay, the width of this should be 174.5. And the height should be 265.1. Right? That's what it should set up. Trim then is weird because we call the outer border in here to be a different thing than the inner border. What we're going to do, we're going to bring up the safety margin so we can use the safe in a different way. Right now it's kind of set up ish, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my bleed to 6.4 millimeters because that's what it has to be, right? And then the interior width on the trim is 169. And the height is 236. Yes? Maybe. No. That's the wrong number. Oh, it's because it's changed all those numbers. That's nice of it. That's so nice of it. Thank you. It changed the size of the page to adjust for all of these weird things that I'm doing down here. Inner border then needs to be 136 wide and 204 tall. Now we get to go back up here where it says width and bring this back down. 174.5. No, I mean it. 265.1. I really mean it. 169, 236.5. All right. I don't need to worry about my safety margins, except that it looks like my margins are outside of the page. Why are the margins outside the page? See, now it's put the 1/4 inch on the outside of the page. zero one more than one, guys. It doesn't match here. There must be other problems I've done somewhere else. Where did I make mistakes? No bigger. 136 by 204. So start with 136 by 204. That's correct. In borders, right? Why am I getting a different trim on it? It doesn't look the same.
It's really not working for you, is it?
I'm having a real problem here. Anytime I use even basic math, do is add. And apparently that's enough to just mess this whole thing up.
Would you like someone to do that?
If this doesn't fix, then yes.
I am available to do that.
But I'm more concerned that plausibly somewhere along the line, Clip Studio is doing something else. Like it's adjusting something weird or something. That's what I'm really worried about. Is that Clip Studio is off doing quote unquote, and that's making everything go wonky. So if the width of the page is 174 and the width of my trim is 169,
You took a shower this morning and I forgot to take my swimsuit out of there.
so it's all wet.
So
Yeah. Yep. I thought about that. By the time I realized you'd left it in there,
it was much too good.
it was already wet.
Yeah, and I'll probably just have to throw it in the dryer.
That'd be fine.
Okay.
I have to do laundry today.
Okay. I have a
Hey guys,
shirt.
I want more coffee. I'm going downstairs and getting more coffee. I'll be right back. I will set us for pretty artwork.
Throwing that pair of jeans in that I put on top of your laundry pile.
All right. Have you not seen my away from keyboard function? Yes, I drew all of those. All of those pictures are mine. They're all from my my collection. Hey, Kat, are you still online? Can you help me out with this? Because I think this is a Clip Studio problem. No. Hang on. I'm going to increase the size so you can see it easier here. So I'm having a problem here with these settings. You can kind of see, I think you can see pretty clearly now that right here, I've got my gutter is exiting the side of the page, right? So the safe is past the page. I set my width for 174.5 millimeters. The page should be, and then the trim should be at 169. It shouldn't be past the page out here. So what am I doing wrong? And then 174 is not inside of 169. So why is it my inside safe is on the page, but my outside safe is past the page? You have any idea? Okay. If you're baffled and I'm baffled, I'm not half as worried. I'm worried I made a mistake. If it's Clip Studio being weird and you're confused too, then maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it is some setting I've just got wrong somewhere. And that's cool because we'll find the setting, we'll flip the setting, and all will be fine. I don't know. Let's find out. Yes. So my bleed is set for 6.4 millimeters because it's not a 5 millimeter bleed. It's a 6.4 millimeter bleed because it's got to be that 1/4 inch for trim, right? Yeah, the canvas size is 6 point whatever or 6.43 inches by 10 point whatever inches. So that's US comic book size. Because see, at this point, I just set the width for 186 millimeters, but 169 plus 6.4 does not equal 186. I mean, I suck at math, but at least I can tell that. Like, right? So I'm trying to figure out, I mean, right now the safety, well, let me turn off the safety margins all entirely because we don't need the safeties. They should be fine. I only need 3 sets of numbers. That's true. It's 12.8, isn't it? Because it'd be a bleed on both sides. But it shouldn't, that should be a check, right? So 169, well, you know what? I have a calculator right here. Gosh, I love phones. What did we do before phones? 169 plus 6.4 plus 6.4 is 181. I think you're right. I think, Kat, it is my math. It's my math.
Right. What a shocker.
We're shocked. Shocked, I tell you, to find out that it's my math. 174.5. You may go back to work now. I'm the one that sucked it. Something's not adding up. Okay. Okay, guys. This should be the correct things because I'll just take 174.5 minus 6.4 minus 6.4. And that makes this 161.7. and now it fits. Anybody shocked this was my math that was the problem? Anybody? Bueller? But if you do that to that side, you've got to do it to the other side, because that's where things get ugly. Because it's not. Because the top and down. Yay, we did it. This. Well, yeah, it did this again. 174. No, I hit enter. So it's going to do it now. It's going to go back and fix all of those things to whatever numbers we were doing. And now we have to wait for Clip Studio to get back under control, which will take some time. So I will just readjust all my, because Clip Studio just had a cow. Work. So I'll just set this back up while Clip Studio is thinking. And then I don't have to worry about it. See you later. Thanks, Kat, for your help. I appreciate it. I always appreciate your help. Actually, why don't you just do cancel, guy? Oh, cancel. Man. There's no canceling. There are no cancels here. Only Zool. There is no Dana. Only Zool. Okay. Ooh! We're gonna pump you up. Yeah. Hans and Franz. Arnold Schwarzenegger's secret cousins. Okay. $161.
Well, I should check with you. Are you planning to be done with your show at 11, or do you have to stay on longer?
A little longer just to fix this last piece. Now that I figured out the problem, as Kat said, I didn't take from both sides. So it's a 6.4 millimeter gutter, but it's really 12.8 because it's 6.4 from the left and 6.4 from the right. So that's maddening, which then makes me wonder how much of my internal stuff is all screwed up too. Right. Well, now if it was off, why would this gutter still read wrong? I mean, it shouldn't read different. It should be. See, this is a measurement, though. Oh, because it wasn't set for bleed at that point whenever I wrote this number down. That's why. Zero one more than one, guys. I live by this and die by this.
The reason I have this right is pretty quick, so I don't want to start until you're relatively close to finishing.
I've got to go see Julia at 1. So Go on ahead and get started. I'll be
Okay.
down there because we don't really have a lot of time to mess around once we hit lunch. All right, 161.7 is the actual bleed over here, and that's fine. Oh, I know what I did wrong. That's why. If you're going to read it correctly. And it's actually reading over here 162, and that's what I should have read, and not this top one. This line is absolute. It's the edge of the paper, which means it is 169 straight up almost. Yeah, it's 169. Because that's this to the absolute edge of the page. It's so frustrating because everything's always I missed something. This is the heart of ADD. So people always think that attention deficit means, I'm like sitting here talking and then I look at a squirrel and yay, squirrel. And they don't realize that there are other smaller, more complicated problems with ADD. The problem that I have here is I can only hold in my memory certain aspects of this page at any given point in time. So pieces of these numbers are falling away and disappearing, and they're going outside of my attention span. And so I'm losing track of which line means what here. And so, like, these lines here are absolute to the left side of the page. These inside here are not. So when I wrote all of these down, the number that I wrote down is this absolute number because I just missed that little bit of attention span problem, right? So I'm going to redraw my page here. Right? Because this number actually means nothing. We shouldn't need this extra little piece here. It's going to be this top bleed means nothing. But that's part of why ADD is so brutal, right? In this instance, this number really should be here. So I'll redo it 162. And that's kind of one of the reasons why it's so frustrating with ADD and why ADD is so difficult to deal with sometimes, and why I don't have trust or faith in myself to do these things correctly, because it's always something like this. I just didn't pay attention that one time, right? I know what I can do. Take you. And maybe this would be a little bit easier to understand if I was a little bit more explicit in saying that this was 0 and, out to this point. But this goes all the way to here, technically, and doesn't in line with. So we should probably do that so that I stop doing this wrong and misunderstanding where this is supposed to go. Really? On the guidelines? Really, people? Because technically this is the end of my page. Right? It even says 31. How did I get 29 out of this? Oh, I know what I did. I probably looked at 30 and then subtracted 1 instead of 30 and added 1. Oh, God. It's amazing that I get anything done, guys. Amazing that I get anything done. My child seems to think wiping electronics with water is good. And I'm like, And this shouldn't have been a solid line. And what this should have been was, and that's part of our problem, this should be a dotted line. So should this. And that's part of the problem too, is I set up like random different meanings for everything. You know what? I'll just get the other side too on that. And if there's a dotted line down there, we probably should kill it too. There isn't. Okay. So now what we'll do is this. We go here, do this, say this. That's not the right way. Okay. I just did it again, didn't I? No, I did not. Okay. I'm like, really? And then this is a solid line. We do not go past this line. And that's part of the reason why there was confusion, because I clearly... Oh, I did screw it up. Good job, me. Oh, I totally screwed it up. Attention deficit is brutal. sometimes. This is part of the problem. I've confused myself by doing this way. Now, solid line. That's this. This should be a solid line. We never cross this line. Never the twain shall meet. Never the Mark Twain shall meet. There. That's what should have read all this time. This solid blue line indicating we never go past that. Not that way, okay. That was weak. The other direction. Stop. You did it wrong. Man. All right. There. Now the nomenclature is correct. Let's save it again. Our numbers are from the top 14.5, 20.8, and 31.0. That's our numbers. The page is minus 14.5 on both sides. So the height should, as I check, be 29 less. Right? So whatever is this interior number, checking it should be 29 millimeters less than the height of the page. Oh my God, people. Checking our height and width. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. I swear, my problems never end, guys. They never end. 260. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.1 millimeters. In red because it's the US size. I mean, I'm sure that the reality is this is hard. I'm sure that this is just difficult, but ADD makes this so much more difficult. So much more complicated. Okay. So hard stop, there's nothing we can do here. This is 265.1. This is, and see, I changed like the entire thing here. Nice. Why were you doing that? I don't know. matter what, this is 174.5. Zero, 1.1. Our gutters are 6.4. Bleed. Step. This is one of those, anybody wants to know what it's like trying to do this stuff as an ADDer, watch this video. If you really want to understand how frustrating attention deficit is, this is the video, because I've been trying to do this right and I'm not getting there and I'm still screwed up. Okay. 6 millimeter bleed times 2, which was the attention thing that we missed, means 12.8 millimeters on both sides. Okay. That's our trim. So you have to give a small gutter around the outside in case the paper cutter cuts a little to this far, a little this way, a little this way. In the US, that's a 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch is 6.4 millimeters. So we're going to check this. 1.174.5 minus 12.8 equals 161.7. which is why I don't get why I've got 162.6 on this side. Right? So the check is that our page inside cut, this cut to the inside, is 161.7. And this is why it bothers me. My number right here says 162.6. But 174.5 minus 12.8 is 161.7. It's off by 1.1 millimeters. Why? Why is it off? It shouldn't be off. Everything should measure the same, right? Did I count wrong? So let's double check it. Turn the grid back on. Go to our grid settings and offset the width by by 6, because we only want one side. 6.4. So we're coming in from the left, 6.4. Let's double check that gutter, right? Here's 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.4. Do you see why I get a little confused here? We are at 6 millimeters. You can see them here. 6.4 millimeters is a 25-inch bleed, 0.25 inch bleed, 0.25, 1/4 inch bleed. There's your 6.4 line. We look up here, it's 0, so 0 is right here. Why doesn't this fit? And I see it right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not a 1/4 inch bleed to this side. So this inattentiveness happened when I wasn't paying attention to this side of this picture. I swear I am insane. This stuff makes me insane. I just missed one thing. But the numbers didn't match. Well, let's take a look at it now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.4. If we put that 2 here, what do we end up with? We end up with 161, 162. It's still 162. It still doesn't make any sense. So double checking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.4 is this little section over here. And that puts us at 160, 161, 162 square. And maybe the difference between 161.5, 0.6, 0.7, this is the difference that we've got going on there. Right? And that's probably really just eaten up by, this isn't 0.4. Maybe this gutter is really a 0.3. That would change our numbers just a little bit. So this is probably okay. This is probably within error. And really, the gutters are just not 6.4 in. They're a little further in or something. We could always go and find out, right? Let's do this real quick. Right? It's 25.4 millimeters in an inch, right? 25.4 divided by 4 is 6.35. So that's part of our problem right there, is the actual border is 6.35. So this is an error. This is just an error rate. So that's slop, if you will. That actually I can handle. But the fact that I put this side in too short, that makes me mad. Because this is my definitive, absolutely definitive thing, and look at what I did. I completely screwed up that side. What else did I not pay attention to? Right? What else did I miss? If I missed that, what else did I miss? So we'll bring this in, and this will adjust it this way. You're funny. No, you're not helping me. Calling that in the slop, and we'll call it, and that's fine. Before dropping it down, make sure that everything ended up without damaging something else inside there. We're good. Okay. So now I'll leave it down. And then go over here and just fill that side. Okay, so we've fixed that problem. And this is really 162, which we will just erase that out of there. Won't be that easy. It's 162 straight. Erase this. 162. That line is 162. And I'll take 162 because 161.7 is close enough. It's close enough. That's okay. All right. Next thing's next. So this becomes 162 in between here. That's fine. Now the hard part. From we're going to go offset by 14. What's probably going to have to happen here is in a minute I'm just going to have to go. But that's okay. Height should be offset by 14. Right. It's 0. Oh, it's 14.5. Height gets offset by 14.5. Likewise and lined up. So this means now that 0 and 0 is right here. That's not correct. Because it should be right here, right? So height gets... Yeah, except I'm leaving soon for food. At this point in time, I'm getting kind of aggravated. 20.8. That puts 0 and 0 there. Perfect. So 20.8. That means the other side here should be 162 and... I'm just determined to make my life miserable. Okay, you just go away. Just go away. All you people go away. Like, I can't. I just apparently cannot. I am so horrible at this that I literally cannot count, apparently. 221, 23, 224. We'll just call this 224. That's fine. All right. If we take the grid and offset it by a height of 14.5, 14.5, 0, that puts the bottom of the page not where it says it is, because why would I do this correctly? What I was saying, Brent, is this is what's so frustrating about actual attention deficit. I know people kind of joke that attention deficit means that, we all just rather play with, with whatever, squirrels or whatever, but this is the actual thing that makes me so mad about attention deficit. I wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. So this number is correct over here. 236.5. But I wasn't clear enough for me. And so I did it wrong. And this says 244. That's not even a number. That's not even one of the numbers on here. And it's all about attention. It's all about not paying attention when we need to do something here. honest, even this doesn't make sense. Right, because the page is in 14.5, so let's put it at 220.5. None of these numbers were right. So if you ever wonder why this is so maddening and why I have to keep doing all of these things, it's because none of these numbers are right. And every one of my comics has a different set of numbers. Every one of my comics has a different set of numbers. Well, even this isn't right. Right? Because it should be zeroed from 31 millimeters, 20.8 millimeters. That's not what it's zeroed at. Okay, so this down here is whatever it is, 10, 11, 12, 13.5. So it's 213.5. Not that I'm necessarily bad at the math. It's that I'm bad at keeping control of my attention span. That's the wrong number. Damn it. It's the wrong spot. That's the spot. Right? Where's 0? 0's here. Here. It's this dotted line, guy. This dotted line. Okay. Jesus. 1, 2, 3. 23.5. Whatever. At least you're close. I don't even count that as 223.6 just so that they line up. I'm okay with that. Okay, that's enough for this. I'm going to go get food. I will see you all later. Oh, yeah. That would be cool too. I agree. I'd do that. All right, guys. I think we are done fussing with this for the now, and I will fuss with it offline. And I'll talk to you guys tonight. And as always, keep your eyes on the stars. Bye-bye.